Jeremy Swayman and secondary scoring stepped up huge in a Game 1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. The question is, who starts Game 2?
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Monday, April 22nd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available wherever you get podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And the Boston Bruins got it started on Saturday with a 5-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. 4 different players scored. Jeremy Swayman had a fantastic start. And the question is, who will get the Game 2 start? We'll discuss that later on in the show. First, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts, at Ian C. McLaren. For those who may be new to the podcast, I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. I've been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years, hosting this podcast for 5 years. Before that, I was a full-time news editor for The Score up here in Ontario, which is where I live. A Bruins fan deep in the heart of Maple Leafs country, and very proudly wearing the black and gold around town these days. So Game 1 got off to a flying start thanks to John Beecher, 2:26 into the game, scoring from Jesper Boqvist and Pat Maroon getting the assist as well. From there, it was all Bruins until the third period with Brandon Carlo scoring, Jake DeBrusk adding 2 power play goals in the second period. David Kampf gave the Leafs a bit of life early in the third period, and let's not kid ourselves. There were a lot of us out there who were thinking, oh, please, Bruins, do not do this. But Trent Frederic sealed it with just over 2 minutes left with an empty netter, giving the Bruins a 5-1 lead. Now, there was a couple of things that were interesting here to me. First, secondary scoring came up huge. Beecher playing on the fourth line. Brandon Carlo, noted rocket, maybe off the ice, not really known for his sniping, but perfect shot past Ilya Samsonov, with Jake DeBrusk getting the primary assist on that one. DeBrusk then chipped in the 2 power play goals. We talked last week with Mike DiStefano of Locked On Maple Leafs, and I said Jake DeBrusk is an X factor in this series. He always seems to come up big against the Leafs, and he did so in Game 1, playing on the second power play unit. The first unit, fairly ineffective, but the second unit that consisted of DeBrusk, Charlie McAvoy, Brad Marchand, who else is on that unit? Charlie Coyle, coming up huge with those 2 goals. And Jake DeBrusk overall had 3 points to lead the Bruins in scoring in this one. Just a vintage playoff performance for Jake DeBrusk. He also had 3 shots on goal, 5 hits, which was just 1 shy of Pat Maroon for the team lead. One of DeBrusk's best games of the season, no doubt. The other player on that second power play unit being Morgan Geekie. So we'll see if those units continue and the effectiveness of the second unit, which is now the de facto first unit. All 4 players who scored for the Bruins were DOn Sweeney draft picks, which I thought was interesting. Frederic, Beecher being late first-round picks. DeBrusk, of course, first round in 2015. Brandon Carlo second round pick in 2015, giving the Bruins first round value with his shutdown ability as well as the offense that he chipped in here kind of unexpectedly. The Bruins went 2 for 5 on the power play, holding the Maple Leafs to 0 goals on 3 attempts. That was one of the main differences in this one. The Leafs did have a pretty significant advantage in terms of shots, 36-24, but it was Jeremy Swayman who stepped up huge with the 35 saves on 36 shots for a save percentage of, what does that amount to? Let's do some quick math. 972, which is just everything you want from a goalie in the play. Secondary scoring was always going to be one of the bigger keys to victory for the Boston Bruins, and they got it in this game. Jake DeBrusk, Trent Frederic, two guys that I keyed in on that needed to step up in this series for the Bruins to have any chance of success. Yes, Fredericks was an empty netter, but Jake DeBrusk with the 2 power play goals could not have been more clutch. Another key for me was faceoffs, and the Bruins have been on the other side of 50% all season long. In this one, they won 57.4% of the faceoffs, and a lot of that was due to Pavel Zacha, who had a 76.9% success rate. Jesper Boqvist, who wasn't amazing in the regular season, won 2/3 of his. John Beecher at 60%. Charlie Coyle, 50%. Morgan Geekie at 33%. So, Coyle, Geekie maybe getting the tougher assignments there. But faceoffs are only important if you get the puck and are able to make something of it. If you win a faceoff and immediately turn it over, then that's a different story. But the Bruins were able to win a large share of faceoffs, and they were able to get it done. Now, the Bruins were outshot 12-3 in the third period. And again, it looked as though the Leafs might be turning it on. At that point, it was already 4-0. So you'd think it would be fairly secure. But again, the Bruins need to lock things down, not coast in the third period, keep the foot on the gas for the whole 60 minutes. And that's one of the keys to victory for sure. But the story of game one was certainly the secondary scoring, stepping up. A lot of hits thrown in this one as well. Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi getting mixed up in things on the other end of the ice. For the Bruins, it was Pat Maroon leading the way. His big hit, sending Timothy Liljegren into the Bruins bench. Really boosted everybody. Trent Frederic, Jake DeBrusk, Jacob Lauko with 5 apiece. David Pastrnak throwing the body around. He had 4 hits on the blue line. It was McAvoy with 4, Andrew Peeke with 3, and it was a 52-51 advantage for the Leafs in terms of hits. They had a block shots advantage as well, 14-13, but the major advantage was on the scoreboard. One shot that didn't even count as a shot on net for Toronto that could have been a turning point was when Austin Matthews hit the post with Jeremy Swayman out of position. It was from a tough angle. That could have changed the complexion of the game. There's always a measure of luck that comes into winning in the playoffs, and everything went right for the Bruins in this one. We'll now turn our attention to game 2, and the big question is, who is going to start? Will the Bruins keep rotating goalies, or will they go with the hot hand in Jeremy Swayman? We'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. It's playoff time, and there's no better place to make your bets than FanDuel. The NBA, the NHL, playoffs have arrived, baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's super safe and easy to use. And right now, again, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win. The over-under for tonight's Bruins-Leafs game is set at 5.5. Very tempting to take the over in that one. I'll leave that up to you. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. They give you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. Thanks so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And right now, also on YouTube, the Locked On NFL mock draft is available. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts, even a fantasy football angle. That's the Locked On NFL mock draft, available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Game 2 between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins goes tonight. And like Game 1, we don't know who the goaltenders are going to be. And that's a huge question that has been hanging over the Bruins pretty much all season long, since the series against the Florida Panthers, where they picked their guy, Linus Ullmark, and stuck with him for better or worse up until Game 7, where they gave Jeremy Swayman the start. And perhaps too late for him to really get into a groove, although they very much could have won that game. They deviated from their rotation, and it came back to bite them a little bit last season in that series against the Panthers. This season, again, they went all season playing one or the other. I think the longest stretch where one guy started was 4 games when Linus Ullmark had a bit of an injury and Jeremy Swayman was called upon to start those games. Brandon Bussey was recalled, didn't get into any game action. It was an even split otherwise. Jeremy Swayman got 44 games played this season. Linus Ullmark with 40. Swayman had 25 wins and a .916 save percentage. Linus Ullmark had 22 wins and a .915 save percentage. So the question is, do the Bruins stick with Jeremy Swayman after being almost perfect against the Leafs in Game 1, or do they continue to ride this rotation? I'm of two minds when it comes to this this debate. I could easily argue sticking with the hot hand. Jeremy Swayman has been excellent against the Toronto Maple Leafs all season long, and there's really no reason to deviate from that at the moment. There's no reason to move away from him after he played so well in Game 1, especially. You have the Leafs questioning, how do we solve Jeremy Swayman? That's what they've been thinking about, and now you mix in Linus Ullmark. perhaps you're making it easier on them because they don't have to contend with Swayman anymore. In the regular season, Swayman had a .959 save percentage against Toronto in 3 starts, all wins. Now he's got this .972 save percentage in the playoffs. So, no brainer, right? Go back to Jeremy Swayman. But at the same time, the MO all season long has been to rotate the goalies. You have 2 guys who can start on any given night and give you elite performances. And Swayman was the better, Ullmark was the better goalie down the stretch. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're waiting for Swayman to falter before you go back to Ullmark because you're allowing the Toronto Maple Leafs to dictate your goaltending, and you are also perhaps running the risk of Ullmark coming in too cold with too much rest. He's not used to sitting for extended periods of time. Both guys are used to playing a couple times per week or every other game. So by sticking with Swayman, you're running the risk of icing Ullmark. And then when you are forced to make a move, perhaps Ullmark's coming in a bit too cold. So do you stick with Swayman while he's running hot and risk Ullmark rusting out? Or do you thank Swayman for his service in game 1, go to Ullmark for game 2, and do this rotation? Now, whatever the play is here, I'm certain that both guys will get some playoff action at some point, whether it be because Swayman has a stinker and you go to Ullmark. Like, say you start Swayman tonight and the Leafs score 3 goals in the first period, go to Ullmark right away. Or say it's like a 6-5 overtime and Swayman gives the puck away and the Leafs score in overtime. That would never happen, right? But say that happens, go to Ullmark the very next game. So I expect to see both goalies at some point in this series and hopefully beyond. For tonight, it's a tough one. And again, I'm of both minds here. You could easily argue going with the hot hand, but Don Sweeney did allude to them having a plan heading into this one and sticking with it. But you can't get married to the plan. And Mike DiStefano and I talked about the example, a baseball example, last year in the MLB playoffs where the Toronto Blue Jays had this plan that they were going to let their starter, Jose Barrios, pitch a certain amount of time and then go to the bullpen. He was cooking. They took him out and they ended up losing. It's a tough one, and I don't envy Jim Montgtomery at all, but I do think it should be Swayman here tonight. Maybe he holds court on home ice, and then you go to Ullmark for the road games. I don't know what's going to happen, but stay tuned to Locked On Bruins, and I'll bring you all the latest when it comes to who is going to start in Game 2. Let me know what you think in the comments as well. Who should it be in Game 2? Should they go back to Swayman, stick with the hot hand? Should they go to Ullmark and ride with this rotation and not risk Ullmark getting too rusty or getting too cold and then calling upon him when he hasn't had a game action in, say, 5 or 7 days? It's a tough one, friends, and I don't envy Jim Montgtomery that at all. Coming up, we're going to discuss a few more keys to this game, and we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. If you're looking for last-minute tickets for Game 2, I can't recommend Game Time any higher. It's an authorized ticket marketplace, makes getting tickets even faster and easier. The prices on Game Time app actually go down closer it gets to puck drop. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a lowest price guarantee. And That guarantee says if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, they will credit you 110% of the difference. My favorite feature is the seat views. You get a panoramic view from the seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you get there. Their customer service policy is also incredibly flexible, and they take out all the guesswork from buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. All right, game 2 tonight at TD Garden. Reggie Lemelin was the game 1 banner captain. We'll see who's there for game 2. I'd love to see Patrice Bergeron out there at some point. It's an earlier start tonight, thank goodness, 7 p.m. And while the Bruins have some questions as to who will start game 2, it's the same situation for the Maple Leafs. Do they keep going with Ilya Samsonov, who allowed 4 goals, or do they turn to Joseph Woll? Bruins have 2 goaltenders who can start every night. The Leafs searching for just one who can step up. One of the keys to the game on Sportsnet was Bruins scoring first. Wouldn't have been my key to the game necessarily, but it could be tonight because you have the Leafs down. You're in their heads. You score first, score early again. That just puts the pressure on them even more. Now, don't get me wrong. This season, the series is not over by any stretch of the imagination. The Maple Leafs still have a ton of talent. Austin Matthews is going to score sooner or later. And if William Nylander is able to return, that will make them even more dangerous. At the moment, it seemed like it was kind of a one-man show for them the other night, despite the fact that Matthews didn't score. It was David Kampf who scored. But for the Bruins to keep the pressure on, they need to score early. They need to score often. Just pepper whoever is in net with shots. Just get those pucks on net. I'm looking to David Pastrnak to have a big game. We all know he was relatively quiet in game 1, but has had success against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the past. And I'm looking for him to have a big offensive game tonight. Secondary scoring stepped up in game 1. Pastrnak had an assist and 3 shots on goal. Would love to see him just getting 5+ shots, scoring a couple goals. Of note as well, his ice time was down in game 1 compared to the regular season, almost over 3 minutes. So maybe he's out there getting some more ice time and shooting at will for the Bruins. So Pastrnak stepping up is a big key to the game. The Bruins continuing to get under Toronto's skin or baiting them into taking penalties. Brad Marchand did a great job of that in game 1 with Max Domi. Right from the very opening faceoff, they were getting into it. Domi took that really dumb penalty, slashing Marchand dangerously, kind of on the bare forearm there. The Bruins were nonplussed by the shenanigans. There's a lot of talk about, the Leafs added Bertuzzi, Domi, Reeves. Those guys could easily be a detriment by just being stupid out there. Anytime Reeves is out on the ice, that's a bonus for the Boston Bruins. And they showed that on the first goal where Reeves, for whatever reason, decided not to cover his guy and be the second man in on a hit behind the play that allowed that 2-on-1 to keep going. So the Bruins had to take advantage of that, continue to be smart, just keep laughing and smiling in those scrums like I saw Brandon Carlo do, Pat Maroon do, and they should be okay. We would love to see them hold court on home ice. They say that, series don't start until the other team is playing at home. So the Bruins need to take advantage of home ice tonight. so that the Leafs don't have home ice advantage in a best-of-5 series. According to Chris Johnson of The Athletic, William Nylander woke up the other day with stiffness somewhere. He did skate yesterday, but did not look his normal limber self. And if he's out of the lineup, the Bruins have to take advantage of that absence. So secondary scoring was the story in game 1. I expect David Pastrnak to have a big game here in game 2. Would love to see Jake DeBrusk continue to keep it rolling. And I'll be jumping on YouTube for immediate reaction following game 2. So please do subscribe there if you have not already. Please do subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app if you have not already. And join me on social media as I tweet through the game at Ian C. McLaren, at Locked NHL Bruins. Who's the game 2 starter? I'm leaning towards going with the hot hand in Swayman, but I won't be mad if they go with Ullmark. Either way, the Bruins will have the advantage in net because Boston's goaltending is so much better than Toronto's. If ever there's a time to rotate, it's now. Just see what happens. And you're going to need both at some point, so you might as well go with Ullmark and not allow him to get too much time between games. Those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me, friends. Please do take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Happy Monday. We'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.